way I imagined it was kind of different than a traditional movie. I wanted to incorporate more, sounds weird, documentary, nonfiction elements in a weird way. We did a lot of photographing of the neighborhood and people here, and a lot of casting of non-professional actors, and using a lot of like very specific real locations to try to interweave actual true elements of the fictional story. And the hope being that that kind of larger tapestry, because it's infused with these elements that are unimpeachably authentic, that it kind of bleeds together and adds to the authenticity of an overall fictional story. So I had that idea, and I wanted to do that so that I could, and I wondered, like, will someone else understand that? And, naturally, any director wants to and needs to and should have a sense of authorship over their project, because that's ultimately who's going to do it. So it occurred to me that probably if I wanted to do that, that I should direct it. It was definitely my dream cast, and definitely in terms of Morgan Freeman. He was my absolute first choice. And I think he'd be anybody's, probably. Anybody with any sense. And Ed Harris was my first choice. I think Ed Harris is one of the great American actors. I think he's on a par with anybody out there. She's this mother who's neglectful, basically, of her child, who gets kidnapped, and who's not the prototypical, victim who looks good and sounds right on camera. She's a real person. And that is in that I needed to find somebody who could play that part, who was brilliant, and I did, and I got really lucky. And she's better than I imagined. Casey's great, understands this area. He's somebody I know well enough where it's like I know every little tick, and I know when it's real and I know when it's false. She is beautiful, but she plays against her beauty. Her behavior kind of belies that, where it's not about just being pretty. It's about being a person who happens to be attractive, but feels authentically real. And I think that comes from like who she is and where she grew up, and just her attitude, is, I think, her career is fast expanding and will probably continue to. And I think this will be, a movie that will be looked at as like Michelle Monaghan on the rise. She did this, then she did that, then she did this, then she did that. And she made the movie better. Yeah, it was good directing my brother. It's like, the hard thing is you have to like separate the fraternal relationship from a professional relationship, and kind of like step outside of that and say, like, I felt like he was my brother before the movie and he'll be my brother after the movie, and I didn't have the time or the luxury to have him be my brother. I had to be like, this is what we need to do, here's the story, here's the deal. It's also him taking a step into doing something that no one's seen him do before, which is one of the things that was exciting for me to do, was to get people to see him do something really different. The story is about a 4-year-old girl in Dorchester who disappears one night. She becomes a big media story because she's this attractive little girl. The police can't figure out what's happened to her. The mother, the aunt of the little girl, in kind of frustration, goes out and hires these two sort of low-rent, relatively inexperienced missing persons detectives to find her. Before I had a child, I think I would have took this story and its contents more lightly. Not in a glib or flip way, but just in a kind of fantasy way. Because before I had a child, I didn't understand what it really felt like to have a person out there in the world that you would really die for, that you cared about more than anything else, that I didn't have that sense of what it means to be a parent. I do now. And it meant that I looked at the story really differently.